Hi, this is Kevin McDougall. I'm one of the 8th grade social studies, or specifically American history teachers at Laramie Middle School. This video here is going to give you an overview of primary sources specifically. This is for a primary and secondary sources unit, which is the first unit of study in American history. So this is going to be a good starting point as you go through the modules on primary and secondary sources, especially primary sources related to this video. So primary sources, we study primary sources because they give us a glimpse into the past. They are perspectives from the people who directly experienced historical events. So a good way to remember that would be like if we're studying the Revolutionary War, the American Revolution, looking at the Declaration of Independence would be a prime example because it was created right at the beginning of that war and is something created at that time. Right? So let's run through some of those examples that you're going to see in this module on primary sources, starting with the most common form, which is a primary source document. Those are typically written or typed documents, and usually, again, it's the perspective of someone from that time period. So it could be, for example, a letter from Robert E. Lee to some other Confederate general during the Civil War. That's something created by someone who experienced the event and is at the time period of study. Another type of primary source document that we can look at that's pretty standard is a government record. I mentioned the Declaration of Independence earlier. That would count as a government record. The most standard type of government record would be the United States Constitution. That's the groundwork for all law in the United States and lays out a lot of the limitations and powers of the federal government. So that was something created at the outset of our country and something that we even use today. So a very, very powerful and standard government record document. Another type of primary source would be an artifact. Artifacts are things such as like a bullet found at the Battle of Gettysburg. Those are something or a thing that was created during that time period and helps us kind of learn more about maybe the military history of the Civil War. Another type of primary source would be a photograph, so still images. This could be like, let's say we're studying the civil rights movement and we're looking at the impact of Martin Luther King Jr. on the civil rights movement. We might look at the pictures of him giving his I Have a Dream speech on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. Another type of primary source document can be an oral history. Oral histories are histories delivered by people who directly experienced the event, typically like in an interview setting. So if someone is wanting to know more about the Holocaust, maybe they interview a Holocaust survivor, someone giving their detailed explanations of their experiences at Auschwitz, for example. And finally, a pretty standard type of primary source is an audio file. So that could be, let's say, President Franklin D. Roosevelt giving his Day That Will Live in Infamy speech a day after the Pearl Harbor bombings in 1941. So that's not an exhaustive list. There are more types of primary sources out there. Those are your most standard. But this module is going to go into a little more depth on each type so that you know how they're used to study history. The first type that you're going to explore, and you'll have some options to explore them at your own pace, but we're going to start with documents since they're the most common. So click the next button on this slide to go ahead and learn more about primary source documents.